Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. Cristopher Sanchez dazzled last night, but can he really make up for the loss of Zack Wheeler? We'll talk about it on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic, doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia for over 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure that you're rating and reviewing if you're checking us out in podcast form. You can listen to the episode or you can watch the episodes on YouTube. And if you do that, hit that subscribe button, hit the like buttons on the videos. If you enjoy the content, doing that is going to get you notifications when the new episodes are posted from Locked On Phillies, so you get caught up to date on everything. It's free and easy to subscribe, and it also really helps us out. So helps you out, helps us out. It's a great win-win if you subscribe to the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Check out our friends over at Game Time. Last night would have been a great game for you to go to through our friends on Game Time, because the Phillies, they took home their 3rd straight victory, their 2nd straight against the Mariners. They won the series against Seattle, and Cristopher Sanchez looked awesome. We're going to talk about Sanchi here to start off the episode, but we're also, after that, it's a starting pitching heavy episode. We're going to get into a breakdown of the rest of the rotation and some of the other guys on the staff and just how this all fits together. I want to take a bit of a deeper dive in that, because a lot of what we've talked about so far when it comes to the rotation is Zack Wheeler and that issue, his injury, his health issue with the blood clot, and not so much the deeper repercussions of what this rotation is going to have to go through. So we'll get into that. And then we'll take a preview of Phil's Mariners, Game 3. Can the Phils complete the sweep? An afternoon baseball game at Citizens Bank Park. We hope. A little bit rainy right now here in the Philadelphia area, but they should be able to get the game in at some point today. And the sweep would be sweet. But let's start with Sanchez, because he was sweet last night. I'll tell you what, man. He looked really good. 6 1/3 innings. He allowed 2 earned. One of those was charged to him, but he did not allow personally. Orion Kerkering had those issues in the 7th inning. And real quick on Kerkering, because I put out a tweet that I got some grief for, where I was like, man, that can't happen. You can't come in walking guys like that and have that performance. I don't think Kerkering stinks. He's been very good at points this year. It was just a one-off bad performance. I'm still comfortable with Kerkering in leverage spots. It was just a bad spot last night. But Sanchez gets charged with an extra earned run as a result of Kerkering's outing. But the big number for him, 12 strikeouts through 6 1/3. That's an insane number. And his swing and miss stuff with that fastball changeup combo is one of the deadliest duos in baseball. There are very few, if any, guys that have a combination as good as what Sanchez has there when it comes to punching out batters, right? There are maybe better pitches in baseball, but there is no better changeup. And for my money, no better combination of pitches than what Cristopher Sanchez has with that fastball changeup that he goes to. That 1-2 punch is unbelievable, and it looked great last night. And the question now that pops into my mind, and I'm sure a lot of yours as well, can Cristopher Sanchez really make up for the loss of Zack Wheeler? That's where your mind has to go, right? Because as much as we say, well, it could be Ranger steps up a little bit more, or Nola gets back to old form, or Walker continues to do what he's doing, or Lazardo, who throws today in Game 3 of the series, looks like good Lazardo, and you cut down on those bad outings. Really, it's Sanchez has to step up. And I'll ask you something real quick, a question to answer that question. Why can't Cristopher Sanchez be Zack Wheeler? What is it about him? Is it the lack of resume? Because outside of that, I don't see any reason why this guy can't pitch to that level. And before Zack Wheeler was Zack Wheeler, nobody knew if he could be that guy. Remember when the Phillies signed him? They weren't signing this perennial ace that was just going to lead their rotation for the entire time that he was here. They were signing a guy that had major upside and was a top part of the rotation pitcher that they believed could be something even better. And they were proven right. But there were teams that did not pay Zack Wheeler, including the New York Mets, that are now ruining that decision because they didn't see it quite yet. And I'm not doing that just to say, oh, dumb Mets didn't sign their guy. I'm just saying, like, it's the same thing where guys aren't called winners until they win. Well, nobody was a winner until they won, right? Until you get that first championship, you can have the argument, but everybody wins their first one. Nobody just like comes into Major League Baseball as a World Series champion. So you have to be able to project out. And when I watch Cristopher Sanchez, I do get glimpses of him being a Zack Wheeler caliber pitcher. In fact, when you look at the numbers this year, you could make the argument that Cristopher Sanchez has been the better pitcher in 2025 than Zack Wheeler. And this is not me trying to talk down on Wheels, right? That's not the point of this. The point I'm trying to make is you lost an ace. Maybe you have another one that just jumps right into that slot. Now, none of this means, oh, it's okay that you lost Wheeler. Having both of those guys, well, that would be an amazing asset for a World Series run. And we'll see if there's some miracle and Wheeler can throw again this year. But listen to these numbers right now. So Sanchez has started 25 times. Wheeler has started 24 times this year. Sanchez, one more start, 2 more quality starts. He has 18 quality starts to Zack Wheeler's 16. Sanchez, 11 wins to Wheeler's 10. Sanchez, 4 losses to Wheeler's 5. Sanchez, more innings, 157, than Wheeler's 149.2. But I mean, that's only because of the one extra start. Now, Sanchez has given up almost 30 more hits, right? And that's the thing with Zack Wheeler. He just doesn't allow base runners. He's one of the best in baseball at keeping guys off the base paths. But Sanchez actually has 2 less earned runs. He's given up 9 less homers. He has 5 more walks, which is negligible. And the strikeouts is the other big differential, which is where the hits come in. He's only struck out 169, while Wheeler is near to 200 at 195. But okay, so Sanchez doesn't have quite the strikeout stuff as Zack Wheeler. He still strikes out more than a batter per inning on average over this season. And he gives up more hits. But he keeps the earned runs down. So clearly he's working out of trouble a lot more often. He's really, really good. His WAR is higher than Wheeler's. His WHIP is a little bit higher, but not much. And his ERA is 2.46 to Wheeler's 2.71. By the numbers, Zack Wheeler and Cristopher Sanchez look incredibly comparable. But now let's look at the stuff. Now, Sanchez is he's not a 2-pitch pitcher, but those two, the fastball changeup combo, is his bread and butter. That's how he gets guys out, right? Wheeler, meanwhile, throws 6, 7, 8 pitches. I don't know. He's got a billion of them. And he varies things very well, and he makes adjustments very well. And he's the more senior pitcher, so he has that more know-how of how to make adjustments in game. But how hard does Wheeler throw? Or was he throwing when he went on the injured list? 95, 96? Okay. Normally he's a 96, 97 guy, sometimes touching 98. But Sanchez is now a 96, 97 guy with that velocity uptick that we saw this offseason. He's got the put-out changeup. He gets weak contact. There is very little that you can look at that Zack Wheeler does that Cristopher Sanchez doesn't. It's strikeouts. It's allowing less hits. Those are important things, but I look at the numbers and watch the performance last night, and I say, wow, we are so lucky that we almost have 2 of these guys. And when I say almost, that might even be shorting Cristopher Sanchez. We might have, all due respect to Zack Wheeler, because I love the guy and I want him to come back and everything. But we might have lost the second best pitcher on this team, not the best pitcher on this team. That's how I'm feeling today. Now, you can tell me if I'm crazy, but I think that Cristopher Sanchez, right now in this year, has been the better arm than Zack Wheeler when you really evaluate everything fairly. The question is, Does he have it in him to be that guy in the postseason? Because we know Zack Wheeler does. We've seen Wheels be one of the best postseason pitchers in the history of baseball. So that's where rubber really meets the road, and we won't know until we get to October. But for where we sit right now, I think we should be very encouraged by that. And JT Realmudo has said as much after the game. JT with a big time 2-run homer in the eighth to put the Phillies up for good on the Mariners, by the way. But JT talked about Sanchez after the game, kind of said, yeah, he would be the ace of a lot of other staffs in baseball. He's always had ace stuff here. We just kind of had Wheeler, so he wasn't considered that solely. But the team believes in him. I think the fan base should believe in him. I certainly believe in him. So do you feel like Cristopher Sanchez is and maybe was the true ace of the staff? Let me know in the comments if you think he could be Zack Wheeler, because I think he has been Zack Wheeler, a near Zack Wheeler clone from the left side, and that will be incredibly valuable. Other stuff from the game, just real quick before we move on to updates on the rest of the rotation and the pitching staff. Kyle Schwarber goes yard again. No surprise there. I mean, he's an absolute monster. He's just adding more money to his pocket, and he's adding to his MVP case. Even though I still think it's Ohtani, I want it to be Schwarber. It was great to see that happen. Bryson Stott goes yard. That's big-time stuff that you were able to see out of him, so you love to get that. And, man, just pure baseball. This is what baseball is supposed to be, folks. Ninth inning, 2-run game. Jhoan Duran on the mound. Cal Raleigh at the plate. Mid-40s in homers on the year. 103-mile-an-hour heater. Let's go. Power on power. And Duran just goes, hey, 102, 103, 102. Sit down. We'll see you tomorrow. Like, that's just great baseball. It's just strength on strength. It's power on power. And Duran just unfazed sits him down like it's nothing. And that's why that guy's so special. So that should be an amazing thing. Like, I loved that at bat. That's one of my favorite at bats of the year for any Phillies pitcher, because you just don't even have to worry about throwing the off-speed stuff. I'm just going to throw my best pitch by you 3 times, and we're going to win this game, and you can't do anything about it. And that's a big part of the reason why the Phillies could still be dangerous in October, and why the bullpen, well, I think they're going to be, when everything's all said and done, more settled when we get to the postseason. But another good win for the Phillies. You like to see what they did there last night. Would like a little bit more consistent offense, and would like to see the bullpen be a little bit more solid outside of Duran, but we'll take it. And they've won 3 straight, and we'll talk later about them trying to make it 4 straight and a series sweep of Seattle, who's a good team, by the way. But coming up next, what goes on with the rest of the rotation? How do these guys slot in? Who moves where? Does it change guys you can move to the bullpen? All of this. I want to take a deeper dive into what the pitching staff is going to look like the rest of the season for the Phillies, and maybe even a guy who's not on the Phillies. We'll discuss that as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about game time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. Today's a perfect example. Phil's going for the sweep. Jesus Lazardo on the mound. You say, well, what if I took a half day from work and I went over to the ballpark for some afternoon baseball at the bank? That's exactly where game time comes in. The easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress is with game time. And with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Maybe today it's a poncho because it's a little bit wet out there, but game time makes it possible. Game time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time's the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game like Phil's Mariners, like I was talking about. But it's not just baseball. They've got football, basketball, hockey, comedy, concerts, theater, all of this great stuff that you can get tickets for. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with Game Time. So what happens to the rest of the rotation with the Zack Wheeler blood clot news and the uncertainty about his ability to pitch again for this team. Like, how does this work for the rest of the guys? I told you already, Sanchez needs to step up. I believe he can do that. But what else do we know? Well, we know that Ranger Suarez had a really good last outing. And that was game 1 of this series. But he's been struggling as of late. Velocity's down. We know that Aaron Nola looked bad. There was no other way to put it. He looked miserable. I'm not talking about his mood. I'm talking about his performance in Sunday's game in Washington. We know that Lazardo can be a coin flip any given start. And we get to flip that coin again today as he goes out there on the mound with the sweep on the line. And then Taijuan Walker is a guy where you say, okay, I'm tentatively believing in Taijuan Walker, and I've given him his props, right? He's done an incredible job stepping into various roles for this team. That does not mean that I'm chomping at the bit to see him start a game in October for the Fightin' Phils, right? I can give him his due and not want him in a certain spot. A great example is a guy like Max Lazar, which Max Lazar guy watch was suspended in Washington because of his rough performance down there, getting touched up a little bit, and he was sent out. So right, he's not even with the team right now. But he's a great example of like what I think the Taijuan Walker mentality should be. I thought Max Lazar had some really helpful spots for the Phillies this year, and I don't mind him in low leverage situations. Doesn't mean that I want him closing, right? That's how I feel about Taijuan Walker. I like him. Do I like him in those spots in the postseason where he's starting games in the NLDS, NLCS, World Series, if we get that far, right? No, I don't. So there's a lot still to be determined. So obviously Cristopher Sanchez, and we're doing this with the assumption that Wheeler is done for the year, right? That is what the pretenses I'm operating under are that Wheeler's season is over. That's just for the sake of this conversation. We don't know that yet, but I think that's a rational place to be considering the severity of his medical condition. Sanchez is obviously your guy, right? That is the one that will lead this rotation. But I don't know who the next guy to throw in the postseason would be. I don't know if it's Ranger. I don't know if it's Lazardo. I don't know if it's Nola. I don't know if it's Walker. And the fact that Walker is in that conversation shows you just how light, or not really light, but questionable the rest of the Phillies rotation is. So for the rest of the year, they can no longer go to the 6-man rotation because Zack Wheeler goes down. So now you have 5 guys, the guys that I listed, right? Sanchez, Suarez, Walker, Nola, and Lazardo. It's so weird to even say the rotation without Zack Wheeler, which I guess is something we kind of got to get used to. But does that cut down on the ability to move one of these guys to the bullpen? If you had a 6-man rotation and you get to let's say the second week of September and everything's going well and you're kind of in a solid lead in the division, I would have expected the Phillies to take Ranger or Lazardo and move them to the pen, or Walker to the bullpen to get them more settled in a role that they will have for the postseason. Now, can you do that? I don't know, because part of the way that you can take a guy out of the rotation is by building up a big enough cushion in the division or in the postseason seating that you can afford to not give your best 5 guys opportunities in the rotation, right? Like you can call somebody up, maybe Andrew Painter, and you can make that work. And you've got a little time to experiment. I don't know if the Phillies have enough in this rotation to build that buffer to give them time to experiment. So that may be off the table until the actual postseason. It could be like final week of September and we say, okay, here's the bullpen moves that are happening. Before, with Wheeler, you had a little bit more leeway to do that early. Now you don't. Also, guys like Ranger, guys like Nola, guys like Lazardo, who are getting either deep into inning counts compared to what you would like them to throw over the course of a season, or in Nola's case, coming back from an injury, so you want to be careful with him. The 6-man rotation, even though I don't like it, would have helped them cut down on the amount of usage they have. You don't get that opportunity anymore. So we are right back to the starting rotation carrying the brunt of the load. And that's a tough thing for them to do with still a month and a half left in this season, or a little under a month and a half left in this season. So will this lead to more wear and tear? Probably. Yeah. Do I want to see the bullpen make up for that? Not really, because I don't trust enough guys in the bullpen still, even with the new look, with Duran bumping everyone down and Alvarado coming back. There's still too many question marks. There are 4 guys in the Phillies bullpen. 5 guys in the Phillies bullpen I trust. I trust Kirkland, Strom, Duran, Alvarado. And I'm going to throw Tanner Banks in there, right? That's where I sit with guys that I trust. And not like in big-time situations for every single one of those guys, but those are the dudes that when they walk to the mound, I don't say, we're in trouble. I say, okay, probably feel good about this. But that's it. And you have 3 more guys in that in that bullpen, I should say, that I do not feel great about. And you can't just keep throwing them out there like Jordan Romano we saw earlier on in the series and making games that shouldn't be close. So it gets tricky. What I would do is I would keep all 5 of those guys in the rotation until at least the second week of September. Then maybe you can reevaluate. Painter, I am not calling him up. He's not been good enough at AAA. And I don't know that this is the time to experiment with him at the major league level with only a 5.5 game lead in the division. I'd like to see that grow over the Mets. And we also talked about, but I'll mention it again, how setting up the rotation for the postseason is key, especially if you play in that wild card series. I mean, you might be screwed because then God knows who's throwing game 1 of the NLDS if you have to play those 3 games in like 4 days or whatever it is for the wild card series. Then you might not have Sanchez. Then you might have tired guys. Like, I want to see the Phillies lock up one of the top 2 seeds in the National League so that they do get the week off and can set things up the way that they'd like to. And that's something that you need all of these guys in the rotation for. So everyone needs to up their game a little bit. I feel better about Ranger today. I feel better about Cristopher Sanchez today. I feel worse about Nola today. I feel better about Taijuan Walker today. And I'm still unsure on Jesus Lazardo. But we get another data point today because he's throwing. So overall, rotation trending in a positive direction for the guys that are available. But we know that it's a negative direction with the loss of Zack Wheeler. So a lot still to be figured out with how that works and who will get the opportunities in October. But when you look at it that way, you say, okay, they're uncertain right now of how they're going to handle it, but they are not without good options. Remember, you're comparing this rotation right now to what the Phillies had at the start of the year. And what the Phillies had at the start of the year, we were talking about as one of the best rotations in the history of this franchise. It looked like that at the time. Obviously, it's a long season, and that didn't work out to be the case. But even like if that's your bar, like the best rotation in franchise history, and you take a step down from that bar, you probably still have a pretty darn good rotation. So we'll see what the Phillies figure out. And what helps is they just keep winning ball games. Coming up next, we're going to talk about if they can do that again in the series finale against the Seattle Mariners. How do they get it done? What do they need to do at the plate? And tune in for my home run predictions because I got another one last night. I told you, keep an eye on Kyle Schwarber. Maybe he goes yard. He did. So we'll talk about that as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Oh, sorry, I was just giving myself a nice pat on the back for that Kyle Schwarber home run prediction there. But we'll see what I think about that as we break down what the Phillies are going after today. And an intriguing bit of lineup news for the Phillies in this series finale against the Seattle Mariners. We will get to that. But first, the pitching matchup. Jesus Lazardo on the mound against Luis Castillo. Castillo, another righty, 3.48 ERA in 142 and a third innings pitched. He struck out 125 batters. So he can strike guys out, but he's not striking out more than a batter an inning, which is normally the mark that I look for a guy that I see as a plus swing and miss guy. He's good. He's not great. He's given up 18 home runs. Okay. Averages out to about 1 every 9 innings. So you're probably seeing, I don't know, 0.75 per start, I would guess, with my terrible math estimation. you can hit this guy out of the yard. And the Phillies have shown off some pop in the past 3 games, so that's a good thing to see. So maybe they can go get him. Now, Lazardo, who knows? His numbers are so tough to determine, like what they mean, to discern where they come from, because he'll have like 2 great starts and then a miserable start and then an okay start. It's just like his numbers look middle of the road, but any given day, you know what he is, man? He is like that box in Mario Kart that you run through, the item box in Mario Kart. And it just rotates around, and you're like, okay, maybe you get the star that makes you invincible, or maybe you get like the bullet where you just blow by everybody else, or maybe you just get, I don't know, a banana peel, and I guess you can just kind of try and do something with that, but it's not great. Everybody's played Mario Kart, right? I hope I'm not speaking French to some people out there who've never played the game, but he's a mystery box. And today we're going to open it up and see what we get, and see if the Phillies can go for the sweep of the Mariners. What I will say is you've seen Ranger and Sanchez in these 2 games in this series have great success with strikeouts. And Lazardo's numbers strikeout-wise, he struck out 158 through 139 innings this year. He is a strikeout pitcher. So if you're looking at something, you're saying, okay, well, maybe the over-under is around like 7 strikeouts for him today. Over. 8 strikeouts today. Probably over. I'd look at him to have 9 or more strikeouts in this game over 6 innings and change worth of work. I hope I'm right, but the Mariners have shown you they're susceptible to striking out. And their addition of Eugenio Suarez at the trade deadline, he's one of the biggest strikeout guys in baseball. Now, he's got power, but he can strike out a bunch. So we'll see if that trend continues. That's the big thing for Lazardo on the mound, and also giving us more information as to who he's going to be in the new look Phillies rotation without Zack Wheeler. But the lineup stuff is intriguing for the Philadelphia Phillies. I'll read it to you. You tell me what's missing. Trey Turner batting leadoff, playing shortstop. Kyle Schwarber batting second, designated hitter. Bryce Harper batting third, playing first base. JT Realmudo catching, batting cleanup, the hero from last night's game. Alec Bohm batting fifth, playing third. Brandon Marsh batting sixth, playing left. Harrison Bader batting seventh, playing center. Max Kepler batting eighth, playing right field. Bryson Stott batting ninth, playing second base. Yeah, that's right. If you didn't catch it, Nick Castellanos not in the lineup. And this is the 3rd time in a week and a half where he has not been in the lineup. And they say he's an everyday player. We want him out there. They used that BS excuse in Texas where they said, oh, the turf was pretty hard, so we wanted to get all of our outfielders a day off. And then they sit him a day in Washington. And now, well, he gets a day off at home against the Seattle Mariners. Now, they may say, oh, just like they did in Washington, it's rest. I don't buy it. I think they are starting the budding platoon in right field with Nick Castellanos and maybe Max Kepler. Maybe some other guys will get thrown in there, and we will see a different outfield alignment in the future with this situation. But that is something to watch, because what the Phillies have told you by what they're doing is Nick Castellanos is no longer a everyday for 162 games player. Now, I know he wasn't on that streak because of the incident in Miami and everything, and that ended his consecutive start streak. But I'm saying that it might not be righties, it's Kepler, lefties, it's Casty, and vice versa. But he's also no longer a start him every day forever, pen him into the lineup. He's penciled into the lineup. And every 3 to 4 to 5 games, it seems like the Phillies are going to start rotating him as well. So now left field is a platoon, center field is a platoon, right field is a platoon. And you know what's funny? If you had told me this at the start of the year, I would have lost my mind. I would have said, wow, I hate this. I like set positions, get good enough players. They should have done more at the trade deadline. But I'm kind of in the let's get nuts mode with this. Let's go crazy. You want to get crazy? Let's get crazy. All right? The Phillies are going to just rotate through outfield players at every position and different setups and different times for different games based on who's hot and who's not and handedness and everything in between. And you know what's funny? They've been winning games doing it, right? They haven't won every game, but they have been winning ball games more often than not with Rob Thomson trying to solve this Rubik's Cube of his outfield options. So at this point, hop on the roller coaster, throw your hands up, and try and enjoy the ride. Again, it is Bader in center, Martian left, Kepler in right for today's game. We'll see if it works out in a sweep, and we'll see if the Phillies can wake up. Oh, and you might be saying, Connor, you didn't tell us who's going to go yard today. Who's going to hit one out of the park? You know what's funny? I get the feeling that Max Kepler is going to run into one today. I don't know why. And this is not, oh, Connor, you're still a Kepler guy. No, I think he's had a terrible year. But I just get the feeling that he's going to take Luis Castillo deep. We'll see if he does. And we'll talk more tomorrow about hopefully a sweep. And remember, it's an off day, so we'll do a standings check-in, along with some general other Phillies conversation, as we always do. But that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for joining us again. Once again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. And check out Mark Farzetta on the Locked On Phillies postcast. Same YouTube channel, same podcast feed, live after the final out every single game. And I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.